Everybody.
Morning, everyone, or evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. I think we've got people from Canada, the UK, United States, and New Zealand. Welcome, everyone. Fantastic that you could join us.
I can see Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Melanie. Mwah. Hui-Chen and Mara. Yay. Go girl from New Zealand. All right, so motivating students to practice. It's a huge topic. Really interesting though. I have loved thinking about it, and because I've been sort of prepping for this over the last few weeks, it's kind of been fun to experiment with a couple of ideas that I've come up with or that I've actually seen on the web from other teachers or in conversation with other teachers around the world who are just kind of, this is the center of our teaching. We only have a half hour. So we need to be able to motivate our students during the week to play at home, and not just to pass time. I have to confess, I do remember one or two moments in my childhood when I would have to put on the oven timer and my mum would say, look, I just need you to be at the piano. If you want to waste your time, that's your choice, but I just need you to be at the piano. It's there. You may as well play. And I used to sit there and can remember a couple of times just doing this. So we've all had that experience, and no doubt it happens all around the world. But it's not productive and it's not fun. It's not inspiring. And so today I want to chew around with you ideas of how we can truly motivate our students to be productive in their playtime at home. Some groundwork first, some sort of overriding thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about how to improvise at home, how to make that actually practically productive. We're going to talk about the teacher's influence, and we're going to talk about the parents' influence at home, and some strategies for the actual motivation. So the first thing to remember is, hey, every student is different, and all of our students bring in their own unique personality, their own nurture, how they've been brought up makes a big difference. So that nature and nurture have to come together, and we as teachers, as good teachers, as great teachers, need to identify how that student works, what ticks their boxes, what flicks their switch. And one thing will probably not work for everyone. At the same time, it's kind of fun to still experiment if you've got a group across the board, because you just need to give that opportunity. But essentially, you really need to find out what works best for each student. Sometimes you'll have a whole group, maybe 3 or 4 kids who this week we're trying this motivation, and it's a huge victory and everybody's going, yay, that just worked. So stick with that. But the other thing is we need to vary it, because that keeps students' interest up. The next thing is repertoire versus improvisation. So when I'm talking about repertoire, I'm talking about our rote learning pieces or our reading pieces, those things that require us to play a certain piece with perfection, as written or as composed. And so that kind of does take a different type of practicing at home to improvisation. Let's start talking about it. So I don't know, what thoughts have you got? How is that practice going to look differently at home?
I guess I usually have the mom play with them together and make it as a game. Otherwise, the child doesn't know what to do. So it depends a lot of the parents really committed to play with their children and make it fun. It's not like a chore. It's a fun bonding time, actually. Mm-hmm. So as a teacher, you have to share with them the importance. So you let them know that's important for them to create that time playing together, and just hope it will work from there.
Yeah. I love that because it's a little bit different to the, perhaps what we would call the discipline of, sitting and perfecting a passage or a piece or, a bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to give permission to muck around with their songs or whatever they want to do. So I always ask them to spend at least 5 minutes of their practice session just mucking around and having fun.
Love that. Yeah, love that. And so I'm not sure how well you heard Leanne speaking there because your mic is still really, really, really quiet.
I'm really loud.
But yeah, what Leanne was saying is that sense of permission. And that's definitely part of the improv scene that's quite different to the repertoire scene. But, as we talk today, we're going to be talking sometimes about how we can motivate students to practice efficiently in repertoire and also practice efficiently in improvisation. I mean, the same principles really cover the two, except for that one key of that permission, and I love that. And I think too, Hui-Chen, that there's that sense of togetherness in improvisation, particularly for our young children, that really does make a huge difference. Let's move forward, and I'm going to just talk about the next area, which is that whole idea, how do we motivate our students to practice? And there's a few thoughts that I've popped down here and some great ideas that I've had from other teachers as well. So let's just go through here. But guys, if you want to, every time we talk about one of these things, I want you to just jump in, and if you've had experience with one of these things, just interrupt me. So live concerts, being able to say to your kids, hey, look, we love music, and as a family we love music together. Some teachers or some parents say, if you can practice, 5 times a week for 4 weeks, then we're going to go to a concert together. We're going to go and see a live concert together, or whatever parameters you put on that. But that's a great motivation to play. And what I love about that type of motivation is that it's totally on topic. It's not like, oh, well, you can have pocket money to go down and spend it at the milk bar down the corner. It's actually music, and it is also a reward that really does open up a whole new world to them. So I love that idea of parents taking their students to live concerts. And I have to say, I've also done the same in my studio. Sometimes there's been even just a free concert down at the local University of Western Australia, and they're lunchtime concerts. And so I'll say, okay, when we finish this level or when we finish this project and it's just sounding really fantastic, or if you can show me your playlist and show me your progress, we're booking in for this concert. So whoever makes it, and then obviously you have to work with the parents to, because they're often during the week, to have time off school during that lunch hour, and they take them in. We all meet together and might see a piano concert or any musical concert. It's so motivating for them. So I don't know if you guys have ever done that yourselves in your studio, but it's a really fun idea and reaps enormous rewards. Popcorn sessions. So I love this idea. There's so many great concerts on YouTube, right? So, you don't even have to have an outing. At home, encourage parents to have popcorn sessions. Go make some popcorn, whatever it is that, you do when you watch movies. But instead of watching a movie, watch a live concert on YouTube. There's some fantastic things. For our really little children, they're probably not going to sit down for an hour's concert, but maybe they can sit down and watch a session of the Piano Guys. How inspiring are they? And what I love about those guys is that they are very much into, you know, the setting of the music, because, you know, they helicopter a piano into the, you know, the desert of Arabia or whatever and actually play there. And so in a sense, it's exactly what we do here at In Musician, is that we put the pianist in the environment that they're going to play. So that's a really fun idea. Of course, home concerts are great, you know, for kids to play in front of their family, bring in the rallies, bring in the friends, and again, you know, do the popcorn thing. A lot of my students do that. And they vary between quite formal events and fairly informal events. So I recommend that my parents organise those kind of things at least once a term, because I think they're really good for the kids. And it also gets them to play in front of other people without all the nerves of having a formal recital. Physical incentives. I struggle with this one, girls. I remember a long time ago, I had a parent once come in and she snuck a little chocolate bar into my hand very deceptively and said, you need to bribe her to sit still for her lesson. So if she does well, you can give her this chocolate bar. And I felt hugely manipulated. And it just kind of, you know, went against the grain as far as offering this to the child at the end of the lesson. You know, would I do what I was told or not? And yet I know that at home, those kind of incentives do work for some families. So it's a tricky one. Guys, what do you think about this idea of even the point system that comes up next, accruing points in order to gain a reward at the end of it?
I think chocolate's okay reward, but it free lesson opens up an expectation, and yeah, don't like it.
Yeah. Another issue that I've had in my studio when I've gone down that line, because I remember I opened up a brand new studio. So this is about 10 years ago, and I decided I just want everyone to have fun and I want to be friends with everyone and I want everyone to love coming. So I had this little crystal sweets jar. And if students had shown me that they'd tick their list every week, they were allowed to take one little sweet out of the jar as they left the studio. Oh boy, the issues that I had with people who felt that they had been done an injustice on any given week, that, oh, well, I ticked 2 of them and, okay, I didn't tick 3, but I did practice the 3 and I just didn't tick it. And I had this then law court at the end of every lesson where I would have to have the hearings from each child. But more than that, I had this terrible angst from parents who went, oh, last week they went home because they didn't get a sweet and they really should have, even though they didn't do what they were expected, because they just cried all the way home. And I went, oh, wow, this is so not working. So I got rid of that system pretty quickly. For me, it was so stressful. And now they actually love coming because they love coming, not because they get a sweet at the end. So again, I struggle with this idea. But I know that some parents do this really, really well. Kylie has also said the 4 I've used over the last 12 months are choosing a packet of little rice wheels or chips if they've done 5, cool. A piano pop-up shop where they can choose little things like pencils and rubbers, etc. Yeah, I love that. And the last one she uses is collecting tokens and then opening up her store for them to spend their tokens at the end of the term. And that's a cool idea. I love that. She has another one. Oh, my goodness, Carly, you're a creative guru here. The others are $5 for 5 weeks of 5 practices in a row. Love it. It's fantastic. Wow. I hope that your I'm wondering how good your students are and how in debt you're going here. But yeah, 5 weeks. I mean, that's pretty cool. So I like those numbers. And I like the simplicity of 5, 5, 5. It's like a bunch of 5s or a high 5 competition, you know. I think that's really cool. That's great. I love it. Recordings. Have you guys ever done recordings of your students to give to them as a, you know, hey, this is your work.
I have parents, they recording their children playing. It makes them feel proud that they accomplished something.
Yeah, it is. And they have a record of their accomplishment, which I think is such a motivator. Love it. Kylie says, I love it when a parent pops their child on Facebook with a video of their playing. It's a great promo for your studio as well. That is so cool. I love that idea because I think every studio should have their own either YouTube channel or Facebook page. And it does become such a great traffic generator to get students to find you and to jump on board. Now the playlist. Let's just talk about the playlist. So we've got 2 playlists. I don't know whether you guys all know this. We have 2 types. One of them has just kind of got the blank notes down the bottom that allow the parents to fill in, what they're doing for the day or for the week. But we've also prepared another one. And on the back of it, there's sort of this map outline that you can tick when a project is covered, because all the parent support is there on the journey interface. So in a sense, they don't need to take notes down of what to do each week. They just have to watch the coaching sessions on the journey and enjoy using the material from home to do that. So that open map of everything that we've done, if you haven't seen it, do check it out. I've started to use that more and more now, and my kids tick each project as it's covered on that back side and then still use the regular playlist on the front. So there's all sorts of things that we can do. I guess there's fall into either an extrinsic motivation, so motivations that come from the outside and we sense a physical gratification because of the enjoyment of something outside of ourselves. And then we also have this idea of the intrinsic motivation, and that sort of is things like the posting on Facebook or YouTube channels, so that sense of doing a recording and loving what you've been able to produce. So these are really cool. All right, let's move on. The actual physical space and the mind space. How do we get students to effectively play at home? Because you can play quite mindlessly at home and fill in your time, but not really achieve a lot. Even more than that, you can practice badly. So you can actually practice in mistakes if you're learning repertoire. Or you can, even in improvisation, you can practice playing your motif in the one place over and over and over until you've just, really not improvised. And so we don't want students to just practice their little motif. Apart from that, it would take, 5 seconds because they're such short motifs. We want to encourage them to get on and play it with the story or with the movie. And a little bit like one of you guys was saying before, it's that sense of permission or exploration, that experimentation that we want to encourage. And often it's the parent, the home coach, that really encourages that. So it's our conversation during class that, I guess, gives an example of the encouragement that a parent can have at home. Short, mindful bursts. I really love this. Now, sometimes that half-hour solid is really good because you can really nut something out. But going beyond that and really giving yourself, hours and hours of practice, I just think your brain can't cope with that. And we know that your brain can't concentrate for that long. With my tiny little students, oh my goodness, they can sometimes only do 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And so I encourage them to get back on the piano and do that a couple of times a day for, my little 4 and 5-year-olds. More than that, we end up in frustration, and I think we have to avoid that at all costs. So the other thing that is kind of an interesting idea. I did this in a workshop not that long ago, and it was super fun. But emulating composers in our improvisation particularly, this whole idea of taking your scene and thinking of a composer who has written something that really fits this scene. So here's an example. So I'm thinking Stormy Symphony, and my students love the Phantom of the Opera, you know, that bum, 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 you know, that kind of thing. I tell you, if you play the A minor, which is the motif for Stormy Symphony anyway, and if your students can do a double octave in the left hand, fantastic, but if not, just using the one finger and just walking down the chromatic down to the, I think you end up on F with that little tune there. So you're going A, bum, 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 and then back up, bum, 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 but you're back into A. It's so cool. And the same thing works then in the D minor. So what you're doing is you're emulating some other composer. Another one that works really well is Beethoven's Fifth for Stormy Symphony. You know, think about that. Ba, 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 ba. It's that rhythmic element. Now, I'm not saying have your students play those songs, but I'm saying go ahead and experiment around the piano using the rhythmic idea or the drama of those pieces, keeping the feel of Beethoven. So it's like you're channeling Beethoven. Perhaps a more obvious one is Fur Elise with Morning Song. So using the two chords that, you know, are playing through that particular song that we just keep going back to with, I think it's the A minor and the E. I can't quite remember now, but I think it's there. Just moving between those chords. Obviously, that's for students who have understood a little bit about chords and if you're going to introduce new chords. But that idea of having the right hand make a sentence and the left hand swoop in with a broken chord, just moving up, is a really great way to emulate Beethoven's Fur Elise, moving around your own chords. So those sort of ideas are really fun to change up the sound at home, make it more interesting, and therefore motivate students to get home and start experimenting and find out what they can find. I guess it's really the same idea as changing the mood or the key signature if they're more advanced students, which we should be doing anyway, is getting them to play the motif in different key signatures. But changing the mood is very cool. Crossing over projects. This is a good one because it enables us to use repertoire and improvisation on the same project. So let's say they're playing Fur Elise and they have to learn it perfectly, obviously, you know, it's a beautiful repertoire piece. But then take Fur Elise and say, okay, now we're going to use the improvisation skills that we've learned. We've locked in that there are two chords that just go back and forth. So let's take that section. And I want you to create your own melody using those left hands of Fur Elise. Okay, so these are ways of creating improvisation projects out of your repertoire projects. And vice versa, to take your improvisation project and if they're up to writing notation out and then put it into a composition. So that's a really cool way of touching on more areas in the one project, and it's a big time saver. And just keeping a good variety of projects happening. So, you know, I'm hoping that none of us are the kind of teachers that have, you know, one piece on the go at any given time. And I know that with our sense of using the playlist, it's not something that most of us struggle with because we're always asking students to keep playing previous repertoire and keeping it alive. But the actual working on new projects, we should have 2 or 3 projects happening at any given time that are in that stage of development. So even in our improvisation, if they're traveling through our journeys, you know, we have one project that's brand new, one project that's nearly there, and then all our previous projects that are just, we're playing them every day or ticking them off and grabbing a group of them to play each day. So I don't know whether you want to talk about any of those particular things. Mara has just said, yes, we must avoid frustration. I really agree, because there's nothing more there's nothing more less motivating than frustration. It just locks us down, both mum and student. Okay, so while you're thinking there, Kylie's just jumped in again, and a really great idea is that idea of using the pop sticks and putting them into 2 cups, one on each end of the piano, and transferring the pop sticks that have got the song on it across to the other one. The other one is, I don't know whether you've heard of the app Decide Now. It's an iPad app, and it's this little spinning wheel that my students love it. So when we're doing playlist reviews, we always use that app during class, because they love to spin the wheel and it lands on a project and we go in and play it. It's really cool. Yeah, so Kylie knows that one. And Melanie, yeah, it's just so cool, isn't it, Melanie, that they love it. And again, if students can use this at home, that's a really motivating factor, and it keeps the variety up in a really fun way. So let's just have a look at the teacher's influence on a student during that precious half hour, which is such a small part of their lives, but a pretty important part. The first thing I'm going to say is your teacher has to be your biggest fan. So this is where they are going to get their sense of being able to be the star that they want to be. And I think that teachers who are enthusiastic and who see such value in their students, no matter what the results of their effort have been, to actually be able to praise them for a really musical interpretation of something, or just an amazing accomplishment on working on some technical detail of a repertoire piece. Just being that good, smiling, affirmative person that stands behind them. I think that's really, really important. And I guess that comes through with the affirmation there. To have that sense of you are musical, and not just because I say so, but because can you hear what you're playing? That is beautiful. And I think too, to be able to say back to them, when you play, and when you played that piece, this is how I felt. That's a really great way to affirm a musician. Melanie commenting about celebrating every accomplishment with specific compliments. Yeah, not just always just saying, oh, that was great, to actually pull out what was that one thing that stood out for you. That's super important. Group jams. These are cool. So if you're not teaching in groups, guys, are you teaching in groups, or do you have all privates?
Groups.
I'm all private at the moment.
Okay, so we've got a few group people and a few private people. So I'm going to suggest something to you. If you don't teach in groups, you're missing out on something really amazing, but not everybody can, either space-wise or, there are certain extra elements there that will really add to your preparation. That's definitely true. But I know that a lot of teachers, when they have back-to-back lessons, so one student comes in and then goes out when the next student comes in, I would encourage you to think about possibilities of that crossover time of, say, 10 minutes, to be able to say to the parent of the child coming in second, can you come 10 minutes early because we're going to do something together? And the child that's first up, can you stay an extra 10 minutes? And just use a little 10-minute crossover time to just jam together. So find a project that both students at whatever level they are at can work together, even if it's just duets, just having that idea of the teacher being so convinced that music is to share. Music is so much fun when it gets shared. That's a really cool thing to do. The other thing to consider is that some teachers that I've been talking to, while they only teach private in their regular lessons once a term, or however long you just, decide, how often you decide to do it. Instead of having all private lessons for that week, maybe you would schedule in to bunch all your private students on one day to have a 2-hour group session, and then take your next day and put all those students together and have a 2-hour session. So that is so cool. A little bit of logistics that you would have to work through there, as far as what you would actually cover and what you need to, do as far as space goes. So that's an important thing. Just moving through these aspirations. So I'm talking about how we inspire students by being an example of being musical yourself. This is how I express myself musically, and being an example for your students to follow. Even using those, piano guys in the studio, they only take a few minutes to play, but just as a treat to be able to say, oh my goodness, you should have seen what I saw this week, and sit there with your computer, pull it up, put it into your beautiful speakers in your studio and let them listen to it, and just be inspired by somebody who we aspire to be as musical as. And you know what? I do it not only with piano musicians, but there's been some, I love cello, so there's been some beautiful cello musicians that I've just found on YouTube. So make sure that in your lesson prep at home, we are researching music that we love, that inspires us, and that will motivate our students to be going, oh my goodness, I want to play music like that. Am I anything like that? Yes, you are. We all are inside. So what we've got to do is unveil it. So that can be a really great motivating conversation to have, especially if you feel that things are a little bit heavy and a little bit down. All right. And so the next one is dosage. So we're pretty familiar with that. The best way to demotivate a student is to give them too less or too much. And so that's kind of, a given. Obviously, we need to understand how to give good dosage so that students are seeing what everybody else is doing. That's very motivating. And to be the person that empowers the student to make the decisions during class. So here I'm specifically talking in our journey in particular at Inner Musician of having the student decide in their lesson, would you like to improvise to the story or to the movie today? And have them click my iPad, not do it for them. What it does is it, again, models what they're doing at home, and it says what you're doing at home when you tick the story or the movie is exactly the same as what we're doing in class. And it really does make them feel kind of important to be the one that ticks it and, does the thing. Coaches, home coaches, they need to be our musicians' second biggest fan. I think that the teacher is always the biggest fan, but yeah, okay, first or second. It's a close draw. So have parents at home looking for those moments where they can rush into the piano and go, oh, are you kidding? Who just played that song? Because that was amazing. And for that student to be able to go, that was me. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe how beautifully you played that. And, parents are learning this as they're sitting in the class and witnessing you, how you interact with the students. And because you're saying this sort of stuff, it's easier for them to picture how they might be able to, emulate that kind of encouragement. So Kylie, again, she says, I have some students who don't have a parent come. It's not ideal, but what I do is video special new things on my phone and then send them straight through to the mum and dad. So it's easy to communicate this way and really helpful if there's no parents there. I'm totally with you, Kylie. I think that's brilliant. I guess what happens in that situation, though, is that we think that we should really just video information-based videos and send them home. But hey, something to think about. What if we could send them home with a highlight of hey, I just wanted to share with you, this is what Billy did during his lesson today. And I'm just amazing. I can't even believe it was him that was playing. And hey, Billy, do you want to do it again for your mum so she can see what we did in class? So you're actually sharing with her that sense of encouragement. And so you're coaching her in ideas of how to encourage her students at home. And I think that's a really awesome. I'm just looking through. Okay, so Judith has got a comment here, so I'll just read that out as well. I teach my 7-year-old son in a twosome group. Yeah, they're really great. Very tricky to be a mum and a teacher. I totally get that. It's like having two different caps, isn't it? I've taught all of my children. Most of the time I've taught them in bigger groups, so I've had 4 or 5 kids along with my students, and that lessens the pressure there a little bit because they kind of form a bit more of a group. You know what I find is the hardest thing is that I'm actually much more strict with my own children in a group than I am with anybody else. So my kids sort of tend to feel like, you know, because I'm mum's kid, I have to kind of come up with a higher level of, she has a higher expectation. So that's something to be so aware of, Judith, is that you don't have a higher or a lower expectation for your own kids, and that you muck around with them just as much. It is a tricky thing, and a great question there. Girls, have you got any handy tips on that? Have you taught your own children?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. What was it like for you? Was it successful? Would you recommend it?
It depends on the child. I have one child, she will just do whatever I say, but the other child is a little bit different. So you just have to know their character and really have the same rule for everyone. There's no exception. They just have to know. You're a student in the class. You're not my daughter right now. You're my student.
Right. So that's an interesting thought, is to totally take off the parent cap if you can. That's easier said than done.
Right.
And Kylie's saying here that she tried, but it was really hard. And she has a friend nearby who taught. And so they were able to swap children. And I was just going to say that sometimes I think it's just better to just say, okay, there's a teacher local. We're going to swap. So you teach mine, I'll teach yours. That's a great idea. So let's keep coming back through to the advocacy here that we've got on this slide. I really do encourage my parents that if there are specific issues at home that have happened during the week, please be your child's advocate. So send me an email before the lesson and say, oh my goodness, we had a terrible week, a really upsetting week, you know, our puppy died or something, you know, whatever it is, or we had a birthday this week and we've been getting ready for it and it was last night and so she's wrecked today. So please just know, I need my parents to tell me these things to prepare me so that I can be compassionate and understanding during that class, during that lesson. And I might even switch up projects for that week. I might just go, okay, so, you know, in conversation, open it up, find out if they can tell me what's happened, and then say, so let's just do something really cool today. Let's play with, you know, some sort of jam thing on my iPad. Let's just have fun. And that's a really good strategy, is to ask your parents to help you understand what their week's been like. Keeping up to date. So you want your parents to be up to date with the projects and what happened or what didn't happen during the lesson. So again, if the parent isn't attending, to have some sort of way of communicating back to the parent what happened during their lesson so that they're fully informed. The schedule. So in our teacher training sessions, in our journey, you know, one of the things that I do right at the beginning is set up that schedule. So I have students with their parents sit down and go, okay, what works best for us, and schedule it in. But you're going to have days that it doesn't work for whatever reason. So if you don't do it at 9 a.m., we do it at 4:30 in the afternoon after you've had afternoon tea. Is that cool? Yes, we high five and agree on that. So that's a really great idea, to have an alternate schedule in for that day on the days that normally we would do, but today we just didn't manage it. You also might have a varied schedule that you do schedule in. So sometimes you'll have, 4 days a week, the 9 a.m. works, but Wednesday we have early morning swimming lessons. So on that day we go to the 4:30 or whatever it is. But just having that time scheduled in, even as a teacher, if I schedule in what I need to do, program it in for the day, it's a hard thing to do. It really helps me manage my time. So guys, do you have your kids schedule in their projects or their time to play their projects, or do you have that conversation?
At the beginning, yes. But it depends. For homeschooler, they seems like easier to keep that time.
That's true.
For the children who goes to public school, each day sometimes they have different schedule. But I think it's good to revisit, to bring it up again and show the importance. Because like you said, if you don't write it in your schedule, you tend to just slip it away.
It's too easy to give something else a priority. Totally. And I think it's human nature. Yeah. And it almost doesn't matter what profession you're in. That seems to be a common theme, even just business owners, they kind of go, if I don't schedule it in, it just doesn't happen. And the day's gone and it's not happening. So I just wanted to say thank you, Ruth, for attending. And Ruth's just going now. So thank you so much for being here. That's awesome. So, and then the last point on that is hands-on versus hands-off. And we've only got 1 minute to wrap this up. So to me, that's an interesting conversation all in its own. But being able to talk to coaches about when is it good to sit there and really hands-on duet with the students, and when is it a good idea to say to especially these little ones, but older ones work beautifully with this idea of, hey, could you just play for me? I need some therapy. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Or can you make me a cup of tea? I'm going to be in the couch near the piano, and I just want you to play for me. Please, that would just, would make my day. So that sense of hands off, but still there, still present, rather than just disappearing and expecting that this student's going to be able to figure out what even adults have trouble figuring out is how to manage multiple projects and get the most efficient time. So that's a huge thing, but pretty important and a great conversation to have with parents. How much time are you sitting there actually playing? Are you getting, up their grill by being so intense that they're just going, oh, Mum, heck, I can do it. To be sensitive and pull back when you need to. So great conversations. Hey, look, it's 10 on the knocker. So we got through everything. We didn't even miss a thing. I'm so proud. So, hey, thank you for joining us, girls. Thank you for having your putting yourself on live, because to me that's just makes all the difference. It was really fun chatting with you. And also for everyone that's joined us over in the chat group on the side there, thank you so much for coming. I hope this has actually been helpful for you. If it has been, great, excellent. If it has, just put in a little thumbs up or whatever you have to put in there just to let us know that, some of these ideas you could probably think through and maybe implement in your studio as well. It's been a joy for me, and we're going to sign off. Let's do it again sometime. It's really fantastic. Thanks, guys. It was great. It was great. Thank you. Oh, I love it. Thank you for bearing with us right at the very beginning there. It's like crazy. Getting the satellites to align is sometimes a little bit tricky. But I guess as we do these more and more, we'll have the system figured out. So it's all good. I wanted to say thank you, Tim.
No worries. It was a learning experience for me, but I did enjoy it. There is the last question there. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. Okay, let's do that. So this is from Melanie. I wanted to get your feedback. I was more relaxed with some Player Story students with their playlist and such, but now transitioning them into the Simply Music program, I am working to have more requirements and hold them accountable to playtime and playlists. Do you find it's best to have Oh, do you find this best? Do you know what? I'm going to say this. I love a requirement-based studio. Totally work. Oh, there. Do you find it's best to have them more accountable from the beginning of PAS? Okay, so yeah, I was going to go along that way. I'm actually very careful about my really little ones and what I expect and make a requirement. So yes, I'm requirement-based because you play every day for whatever it is that we agree. So my minimum is 5 days because I think that we need 2 days off. And in fact, sometimes my parents will write their schedule with a no play day, and it's written in on the day that works best for their family to have a no play day. It's amazing how many times when you say, I want you to have, to do something that you don't want them to do, and they'll just do the opposite. So if you say no play day, they probably actually go, oh, today I really feel like playing. That little reverse psychology. But so my requirement is 5 out of 7. But for every student, it's different as to how many scenes they're going to play or how many projects they can cover. And it's also different for each student as to how much time they're going to allocate to that playtime. And it's also going to make a difference as to how many times they come back to the piano. So the requirement is that we play every day. Within that requirement is we work together to find out what works best for you, because right at the beginning we said every student is different. Every student is unique. So I'm hoping maybe that touches on that idea. Yeah, okay. We have to close in. I mean, we can just keep talking. No. It's on my schedule. I have something to do now. All right. Hey, ciao. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Bye now.